7, 8, 9.
But it's clear from Wood's body cam, after putting the 22-year-old through a series of tests and looking into his eyes, he thought Cash was drunk.
Are you sure you only had one beer and one shot?
Yes, sir.
Because that's not what I'm saying.
But Officer Wood failed to put in his report something he did see: the results of a breathalyzer field test to detect alcohol. Cash blew a 000, no alcohol detected, not just once, but 8 times at the scene.
Welcome back to We the People University. My name is Abiyah Israel, former police officer and former sheriff's deputy. All right, guys, the video that we're going to watch today is the perfect example of why I know myself, and I've seen several other channels state this as well, that you should not submit to taking a field sobriety test. Understand, they are not meant to prove to the police officer that you are not intoxicated. These tests are subjective. The officer gets to determine whether you pass or fail. So ultimately, the only thing that these tests do is prove or gather evidence against you in court. Never submit to a field sobriety test. It is not mandatory. And cops, sometimes they will explain it or ask you or state it in a way that make you feel like it is mandatory, but it is not. Let's take a look at a couple cases that's covered by Fox 5 News up in Georgia, and we'll revisit a little more here in a second.
The Commerce Police Department charged innocent people with driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol who insisted all along there was no evidence to make an arrest.
That finding comes from a Fox 5 team analysis of DUI arrests, some of which have already been dismissed. Fox 5 team reporter Randy Travis says the chief was made aware of the first case nearly a year ago. Randy.
Courtney and Tom, these people did not have any drugs on them or smell like they'd been drinking. They were pulled over on minor traffic violations, with the officer deciding he could tell they were under the influence, despite some obvious signs suggesting otherwise.
Thought I was coming down here to have dinner with my friends, listen to some people sing some karaoke, and then go home.
You been drinking tonight?
But apparently he had other ideas.
It had been more than 3 hours since Aaron Cash says he had any alcohol that night last April. Commerce police officer Cody Wood said Cash crossed the center line as he drove away. We can't confirm because the city said the dash cam video was lost during a transfer to a new system.
7, 8, 9.
But it's clear from Wood's body cam, after putting the 22-year-old through a series of tests and looking into his eyes, he thought Cash was drunk.
Are you sure you only had one beer and one shot?
Yes, sir.
Because that's not what I'm saying.
But Officer Wood failed to put in his report something he did see: the results of a breathalyzer field test to detect alcohol. Cash blew a 000, no alcohol detected, not just once, but 8 times at the scene. The officer even trying a different device borrowed from his sergeant.
Giving 000s.
Yet they still decided to charge Aaron Cash with DUI.
I think I'm probably about to lose my job too.
At the jail, Officer Wood called in a Jefferson police officer who was certified to use a more elaborate alcohol sensor. Cash blew 2 more times and then waited for the Jefferson cop to read the results.
He starts looking through the paperwork, and then he looks up at me, looks over at the arresting officer, looks back at me, says, "Is this an effing joke?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Because you blew 000s twice. Like, you're not drunk. I don't know why you're here."
Even though he had now passed 10 breath tests, Wood still charged Cash with drunk driving.
This guy passed the breathalyzer 10 times, 10, and he was still arrested, showing that the officer had a motive. A lot of people believe that there is a quota within police departments, and the answer to that is yes and no. Well, for the no, there are no legal quotas. Not even the chief could tell me, hey, you must write this citation, you must make this arrest. There are certain things that I have discretion on, and the chief himself couldn't force me legally, keyword, to make that arrest or write that citation. But under the table, this is where I say yes, because under the table, if you are not making the arrest or if you are not writing the citations, who knows, you may find yourself working in a zone that, you know, you really don't want to be in, one that's a little bit uncomfortable for you, or you might not get those promotions that you've been looking forward to because you're not making as much as you want to make and you want a promotion to make more money. So, you know, now at this point, officers start to have that quota enforced that they are following, but legally, no. Under the table, yes. And this seems to be what's happening with this police department located in Georgia, the Commerce Police Department. This officer is trying to meet a quota that has been pushed under the table, and at this point is more than clear.
It was eventually dismissed.
Is doing people wrong.
Tommy Rucker got a call from his niece last October that she was being charged with driving under the influence of drugs. The retired cop headed to the scene.
I said, she don't drink. She don't do drugs. She just left the house.
There were no drugs in Ashley Faust's car. Officer Wood determined she was impaired because he decided she failed the field test, noting in his report her eyelids had tremors throughout one of the tests. On January 8th, her blood test results finally came back, all clean, no drugs, and the city dropped all charges.
That's when Commerce Police put Officer Wood on paid leave and started looking at all of his DUI cases. We did as well and discovered that he made twice as many DUI arrests last year as all the other Commerce police officers combined.
No one from Commerce would sit down to answer our questions. In a written statement, Police Chief Ken Harmon said he's also reviewing the actions and involvement of other officers to ensure compliance with departmental policy.
Aaron Cash tried to tell the chief.
He did.
You tried to tell the chief.
Yes, I did.
And yet this officer remained on the force.
He did.
It's the first time I tried to use it.
Wood was never disciplined after the wrongful DUI arrest of Aaron Cash last April. A student pilot, Cash managed to get his arrest records expunged, so it won't affect his dream to eventually get his pilot's license.
If you have an officer that is continuously making false arrests, that doesn't just reflect badly on that officer, that reflects badly on the whole department and then the cops as a whole.
We have so far found 4 people who say they complained, including one man who says that he was charged with DUI drugs, and the only evidence that the officer said he had on him was that he saw something green up his nose.
So Officer Woods, the green thing that you saw up his nose is called a booger. It's not drugs, okay? And that's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. In my time of policing, I've never heard that one before. I saw something green up his nose, so therefore I placed him under arrest. Again, can't say this enough. These are the reasons you do not talk to the police. You always record the police, and also never submit to field sobriety tests. Now, in the state of Georgia, blood alcohol tests, it is mandatory. If you are a driver in Georgia, you signed that contract or that agreement with the state stating that you would submit to the blood alcohol test if law enforcement requires you to do so. If not, you could face a penalty of losing your license. First offense, and there's a second offense and third offense and so on. Depending on what offense you're on will depend on how long you lose your license. But other than that, what you have agreed to, never submit to field sobriety tests. Always remember, they're only designed to collect evidence against you at court. These tests are subjective, and the police officer is not going to believe that you are not intoxicated. If this video is not evidence enough, I do not know what is. Know your rights, record the police, and don't take any field sobriety tests. With that being said, We the People University, signing off.